This makes me happy, and we can officially get started. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Adara Goldberg, and I am the director of the Holocaust Resource Center and Diversity Council here at Kean University. One of our primary objectives is to ensure that education is as accessible and equitable as possible. And so, for people who have asked why we are continuing to offer sessions virtually, it is for that reason. We want to be respectful of everybody's time and their responsibilities, both professionally and in their personal lives. So I hope that this is helpful for you, that you didn't have to travel to a campus for the program. And we are just glad to see all of your faces tonight. Um, Tonight's session came about in a unique way. Typically, when we're planning a program, we sit down, we generate ideas, we think about potential hosts. And this time we got really lucky because tonight's facilitator, Lauren Wells, approached us with an idea in response to the banning of mouse in the Tennessee School District for eighth graders. And there's something always really exciting when a lead teacher is the one behind professional development. And so we are so thrilled that we've had an opportunity to work together throughout the semester. And I also want to acknowledge Jackie Jones, who we're going to be getting back soon. She is one, I'm still calling you one of our instructors in the post back because we will get you back. But I know Jackie has also been Lauren's professor in the Holocaust and Genocide Studies program at Rowan. And so this is being done in partial fulfillment of course requirements. So we are just so very happy to have Lauren here today running the show. And I am going to hand things over to you.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, I just want to thank everybody. I know that, as a teacher myself, I know it's really hard to find time to do this. And I just want to thank you. So like Adara said, my name is Lauren Wells. This is my 10th year teaching history. I'm actually starting at a new school in April 25th. So I figured I'll give you my personal email in the event that if you have a question or somebody to run something by. I don't pretend to be an expert on banning or teaching with banned material. But I do have experience teaching controversial topics. And like Adara said, I was appalled by the banning of books, and we'll get to that word banning in just a second. But I was appalled by the banning of materials like mouse. And I knew I wanted to put my Holocaust educator hat on and do something about it, and have to have this platform I'm really thankful for. So who am I? My name is Lauren Wells, like I said. I have my BA in social studies ed from TCNJ. I have my master's degree in social studies education from Columbia University. I got my post-bac cert at Kean. I am currently enrolled in a leadership program, an ed leadership program at Montclair. And I'm also getting my master's in Holocaust and Genocide education with a certificate in DEI from Rowan. I just really like going to school, apparently. But I'm really my passion is human rights education and Holocaust education. So 2015, I created the Holocaust and Genocide Studies course at Summit High School. And I had the privilege of doing PD across the state from Rutgers and of course Kean and Rowan, and just so many wonderful programs throughout the state. I also toured the sites of Europe in 2019. So I've been to these places, that we're talking about. And so it really is a passion of mine. Holocaust education and human rights education is a passion of mine. So where did this come from is the first question. So as Adara said, this is in fulfillment for a course I'm taking, but also I was just generally really disturbed and upset by the lack of thought that was being put in, for lack of a better word, the lack of thought that was being put into these like banning of books. And we can also lump the Don't Say Gay bill on top of all of, the banning of thought and consciousness and materials, that is currently going on right now. And we never really stop to think like, well, who gets harmed in doing this? And I'm not here to justify banning of books and banning of materials and banning of ideas and discussions. But also thinking about like, it's not just Mouse, right? It's not just Holocaust education. It's, the bluest eye has been banned. Not All Boys Are Blue, which if you haven't read it, I strongly recommend. I think it's one of the most beautifully written books, but that was pulled. So it's not just Holocaust education. Like this is also like human rights that are being pulled, people's experiences with feminism and race, social class, gender, sexual orientation. So this discussion today is really about not only like why these books are getting banned, and notice I'm putting like banned in air quotes, but we'll get to that. But also really thinking about who gets harmed in banning these materials and who isn't getting represented, and why is this, happening, and how can we as educators, how can we really use these materials in a way to keep them in our classrooms? So what I want us to do is I really want us to think about why the buzzwords behind getting banned books. So what you're going to do is you're going to log on to menti.com, and I'll show you in just a second. But we're going to create 2 word bubbles together about the main reasons why these books are getting banned. So the first word bubble that we're going to create is about the word uncomfortable. So you're going to log on to mentimeter.com. Menti.com. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't pull this up because I wanted to show you how to do this. Now I'm messing it up. Okay.
I'm
So
sorry to interrupt you.
no,
You can
please.
just give us the link.
Oh.
You can just put it in the chat
Oh.
because I use Mentimeter all the time, or I used
I
to.
love
when we were
Mentimeter.
online.
Oh. Well, thank you, everybody. I love Mentimeter. All right, this is cool. So you're just seeing me struggle. How do I log out? Okay. Sorry, guys.
It happens at the best of times. So
Okay. All right, cool. So you're going to go to menti.com, and then you're going to put in this code. menti.com, and then this code. Or I'll put this in the chat. Okay. All right. So when you're thinking about the word critical, what does that mean? Like people say one of the big issues with banning books, right, is that these books are too critical. So what does this mean? What does the word critical mean? Judgmental, negative, scrutinizing, judgment. Great. Serious, disapproving, judgment, judgmental, negative. Good. So thinking about, we don't want to put these books on shelves because they're critical. For me personally, I'm like, yes, that's a good thing. But that word critical, right, has a negative connotation, which is what I want to talk about. Now, another reason why books are getting banned, quote unquote, is that because they make people uncomfortable. Well, what does uncomfortable really even mean? Painful, off-putting, bothersome, unpleasant. Icky. Yes. Good. So I'm going to go back to this one and I just want to review it. And I know you guys can see it on your own, but this is the word bubble we created for the word critical. And the bigger the word, the more people used it. So just looking at those patterns. And the same thing with uncomfortable. There's definitely, a wide range of words for both of these. So before we really dive into like what we're doing here, I want us to just have like a quick question and answer session, like a whole group debrief about these questions down here. So the larger the word in the word bubble, the more times the word was used. Did the participants here like notice any patterns in the words that were used for either uncomfortable or critical? And you can just jump in when you would like to.
Could you pull it back up for us?
Oh, yeah, of course. So any patterns?
They were negative.
Largely, yeah. And here's one for critical.
Again, very negative.
Mm-hmm.
So critical is interesting to me though, Lauren, because
Yes.
critical has a mix, right? Like important is clearly not all of us, but a lot of us said important because it's the biggest word on there. And that's not right. That's not negative. So we're thinking about like critical inquiry that we do with our students, or thinking about like looking at things through a critical lens. It is important, and it's not always negative. I would argue even more so that it's a necessary thing to do, right? To be able to formulate our own opinions and be able to have those necessary conversations and think deeply. So it's really interesting because we have like essential, thinking deeply, deep, necessary, important, urgent, thoughtful. But then there is that other side of critical that is, that is negative.
That's the thing that I noticed too. I was like, leave it to teachers to turn like some like critical into like, yes, right? It's necessary. Being critical is necessary. And yet in this connotation or in this context, in the banned book context, is using as like, you can't be critical.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, honestly, when I heard critical, my first thought was critical care. It's,
Mhm.
I mean, that's basic need. Beyond anything else, it's more important than anything. What is the critical information you need? This, so it's funny because like I'm a school librarian, so I teach a lot about evaluating information, and I'll talk about how bias is not necessarily bad. It depends on how you're looking at it. We can be biased toward something that's not a bad thing. So it again, it's all context when you're talking about critical. How are you looking at critical? Are you looking at critical like you're, like you're putting it down, like you're tearing it apart, which is what we're talking about here. For most of us in the school environment, you're right, we do use critical as basic, basic need, the building blocks, the most important things.
Yeah.
Something that jumps out to me, and it makes me wonder, with my own thinking, and when I speak with students or researchers, is how much other people's ideas about what critical mean fed into my response. This is this idea of negative. Like, I don't actually think critical means negative, but I think that other people do. Like, when I hear the word, I sort of go, ugh, like, because I know critical thinking is essential. Um, but other people see it and they go critical. Oh, this is something we need to stay away from. So I wonder just how much that feeds into the words and definitions that we assign to it.
Definitely.
Sarah
Isn't that-
posted it. Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry, I was just going to say, but isn't that how vocabulary works? It's the use at the time. That's how language evolves. That's why we have a living language.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It's interesting, like just reflecting on it and looking and going, the words that even I associated with it are not necessarily the ones that on my day to day I would do. So it's just when asked to think, like, what does this mean? I started to think about everything else in the universe and not necessarily my own thoughts as an educator, like what I know it means. And Sarah posted something in the chat that she would bring up to students the difference between critical and crucial as well.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you all so much. So thinking about why books are getting banned, like those two words, critical and uncomfortable, when we think about the way in which things are changed, we change things because we criticize them. We change things because we critique them. We change things because we're uncomfortable with the status quo. And yet these have all become justifications for banning these books or limiting the scope of these books. And the first thing that came to my mind when I was, when I first heard of the banning of materials was this picture. So most of you, I'm sure, know about Nazi book burning, but what happened in Nazi Germany is that, the Holocaust didn't happen overnight. The first people who were exposed or who were put into these concentration camps were the intellectuals, right? Were the people who were critical of Adolf Hitler. And then you had book burning. And I never really thought about the role of intellectuals in the Holocaust, before I really dove into Holocaust education and human rights education, and the importance of being an intellectual. And then it really dawned on me how important intellectuals really were to the critique of Adolf Hitler when we were in a bunker in Auschwitz. And it was walls of pictures of people who were in Auschwitz. And for some reason, the line had stopped and I turned, and in front of me was this gentleman, Jan Blinsky, and he, if you guys can see, his occupation is teacher. And, not only you can kind of like see my cell phone and like my reflection in the picture, because I really did see myself in him. Like, what is it about teachers that threatened Nazi Germany? Well, it was their critical analysis, it was their critique, it was their education, it was their knowledge. And then on top of that, you think of all of the voices that were lost because of Nazi book burning. And you can't help but think of all of the voices that are currently being lost because narratives are being banned. Like I said, sexual orientation, gender, gender identity, so on and so forth, right? All of these different forms of representation are being banned. All these identities are being banned. So you have the Nazi book burning in Berlin of May 10th, 1933. And this is actually my picture from the book banning memorial in Berlin, right where this book burning took place is a memorial. And these are bookshelves that are empty. And it's supposed to be like, and you're like looking down into it. And it's supposed to make you think about like all of the voices that were lost. And when I heard about these book banning, it was not only the book burning that I thought of, but also this memorial, because all of these different narratives and people and again, like forms of representation are being lost. So my goal really today for this professional development is making sure that we, as educators, we come together and we think about how we can continue to use these pieces in the classroom. And also as an educator, what I really like to think about is like what gets lost. And not only, do I teach Holocaust and human rights, but I'm also a sociology teacher. So I also like to think about, the why behind everything. And what I thought of when this was happening was an essay called it was a book, a chapter in a book of W.E.B. Du Bois's long essay. It's called The Propaganda of History. And quote, Du Bois says, "What are American children taught today about Reconstruction? An American youth attending college today would learn from current textbooks of history that the Constitution recognized slavery, that the chance of getting rid of slavery by peaceful methods was ruined by the abolitionists, that after the period of Andrew Jackson, the two sections of the United States had become, quote, fully conscious of their conflicting interests, two irreconcilable forms of civilization. He would read that Harriet Beecher Stowe brought on the Civil War, that the assault on Charles Sumner was due to his coarse ineffective against the South Carolina senator, and that Negroes were the only people to achieve emancipation with no effort on their part, that Reconstruction was a disgraceful attempt to subject white people to the ignorant Negro rule. If, on the other hand, we are going to use history for our pleasure and amusement, for inflating our national ego and giving us a false but pleasurable sense of accomplishment, then we must give up the idea of history as a science or as an art using the results of science, and admit frankly that we are using a version of historic fact in order to influence and educate the new generation along the way we wish. It is propaganda like this that has led men in the past to insist that history is, quote, lies agreed upon, and to point out the danger in such misinformation. It is indeed extremely doubtful if any permanent benefit comes to the world through such action. Nations reel and stagger on their way. They make hideous mistakes. They commit frightful wrongs. They do great and beautiful things. And shall we not best guide humanity by telling the truth about all of this, so as far as the truth is ascertainable? And that line, that last paragraph really spoke to me, that history is lies agreed upon. Well, we kind of have to break out of that if, as educators, if we are going to make sure that we can continue to use these materials in the classroom. Because if we don't, then what lies are going to continue to get taught over and over and over again. And that to me is why we do this. When Adar and I were first speaking about this, both of us kind of came to the conclusion that, the fact is that so many people read the same books for Holocaust education over and over and over again, right? You have Number of the Stars, you have Anne Frank, some people are lucky enough to read Knight, and then you have Mouse. And, we were saying how, well, why, or some people will say like, well, why can't you just use Anne Frank? Like, why do you need to use Mouse? Well, because Mouse isn't the same thing as Anne Frank, right? Mouse is not the same story as Anne Frank. None of the books, none of those primary sources are the same. So no, being uncomfortable with Mouse is not the same thing as being uncomfortable or being comfortable with Anne Frank, because they are two very, very different stories. And what we as educators really need to do is like understand is what is making people uncomfortable about this, and like what can we do to mitigate those feelings, or what can we do to say, yes, I understand that you're uncomfortable, but this is why we're doing what we're doing. And when I first started, teaching Holocaust and genocide, in taking these courses in my own right, I was really thinking about the best piece of advice I've ever gotten, which was you teach to not to shock, but you teach to feel. So you teach these books and these banned sources, not for their shock value, right? But we teach it because we want to build empathy. We want to show students different perspectives. We want to bring students out of their comfort zones and into someone else's experience as much as we can, in an authentic way. So we really have to learn how to have the dialogue. And yeah, I'm saying we, myself included, in order to bring our kids like safely into the subject, but also then to bring them safely out, right? We can't just like shove their faces in an uncomfortable situation, and then expect them to feel empathy at the end of it. Like, what can we do as educators to make sure that they're grappling with the sources, but also that we're not sugarcoating things. We want to give them authentic experiences into like people who have been marginalized, people who have been oppressed, the others in society. We want to make sure that they, meaning our students, are really grappling with, these different perspectives in a safe way. So another thing that I always get is, well, why are you teaching this anyway? Like, it's in the curriculum, right? So if somebody is saying, well, we really shouldn't be using this material, well, it's in the curriculum, right? We have the Amistad curriculum, the LGBTQ curriculum, the Holocaust mandate. There's new AAPI history. There's a DEI mandate. So yeah, this is in the curriculum. So if we are going to not only teach representation, but like teach what is actually mandated of us in a safe way, then we need to come together as educators to really talk about how we can use these with our students and talk about how we have used them. So here is what we are going to do, and I'm really excited about this. So I made 3 different Padlets. What you are going to do, there are 4 different sources. One is Holocaust related, and the others have to do with race, class, gender, sexual orientation, feminist ideology. And what you're going to do is on the Padlet, and I'll show you what they look like. So the Padlet here has the 4 different sources. What I would like you to do as a group, because we're going to break out into breakout rooms, what I would like you to do as a group is I want you to look at the source, and I'll show you how to do it. You're going to talk with your fellow educators about why are you using banned material in the classroom? What are we trying to get students to feel from this source? What are we trying to get students to think about, to believe, to understand? And then how you view the source is you click it just like this. And then you can also like zoom in to read more in depth. And then to add, I don't know if you guys have used Padlet before, but to add, you just press the plus button and then you can type in your analysis there. Also, the goal of this is for you to have these sources at the end of this, so you can walk away with something you can use in your classroom tomorrow. So Adara, if you can help me with breakout rooms.
Sure. What I'm going to do is create 3 breakout rooms. Number 1, elementary, number 2, middle, and number 3, high school and beyond. And people will have an opportunity to choose which room
And
they
then I'll
want to
give you the
join.
link. If you could also pick a representative, because I do want to debrief this at the end, just to share out what you took away. And then also we'll run this for about 15 minutes. So that way I can respect everybody's time.
Lauren, would you mind putting the link to the Padlet in the chat, please?
Yeah, so this one is high school. This one is middle school. And this one is elementary school.
Okay, so I'm going to open the rooms right now. And I'm here if anyone's having trouble getting into the rooms. It looks like we're doing it. This is great.
So we can just join whichever we want.
Yes, you can either join according, to room 1 is sort of elementary geared, room 2 is middle, and room 3 is high school and up. But you can feel free to join whichever one you'd like.
I'm gonna hang here.
Yay. How are you feeling?
I just want to talk to Adara. I haven't seen you in so long. It's so good to see you.
Lauren, do you see my message?
Oh, yeah.
Go for it. Yeah.
How do I do that? I'm like a mess with Zoom.
That's okay. If you go just where it says breakout rooms, I can assign you if you want.
Actually, yeah, can you?
You got it. Hold on. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Your video.
You could
made-
probably put these people like.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say you probably could like put people just like in a room, but they might be like Jody like driving or something.
Yep.
Is that our Sarah behind the Sarah box?
Yeah.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Jackie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Oh, okay. I just put them. I moved them all. Oh my God. How are you feeling?
Good. Much better now. The first trimester was like really, really rough. Do you see my belly?
Yeah. Yes, I do. Please.
This is my favorite thing because I swear I grew like just this week, but I just my belly.
Oh,
You can
that
see
looks like
it.
a healthy belly. That makes me so
Yay.
happy to see that.
It's so exciting.
Oh my, I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
so
And I
happy.
felt so bad when Sarah was like, do you want to teach in the fall? I was like, I want to, but I'm due at the end of
Okay.
July. I don't think that's enough of a maternity break for me.
No. When do you have to go
Yeah.
back? How soon after?
So because I haven't been there for a year yet, I don't get like a lot of maternity leave. I think I'm with my sick and vacation time, I will be able to make it to about 12 weeks, which is what I was hoping for, at least like at minimum was 12 weeks. So depending on when she's born,
Does
in
she?
July she's due. Yeah.
What's your due
She's
date?
she's due July 25th.
Ooh, maybe
So if
she'll
she's born like
maybe
a
she'll
what?
have a Charlotte birthday. Charlotte's the 27th.
Yeah. Oh, perfect.
I was due like way
Yeah, so
after
if
that,
she's
but you know.
really.
Oh my gosh, I'm just
Yeah. So if she's born like around her due date, then I can probably push it to like November 1st. That would be that's like my goals to like have off all of August, September, and October, and we'll see.
you just do the best that you
But if
can
she's
with it.
born, yeah. So many people are like, all my friends that have had babies recently are all going like anywhere from like 2 to 6 weeks early, which is
Yeah. Yeah,
crazy.
I was 2 weeks early. You know, it's like surprise. Eric was like, I'm not ready. I'm like, well, it's just too bad.
Here
I'm
we
like,
go.
he's like, I don't think it's gonna happen. I'm like, yeah, Dad, it's happening today. Oh my gosh.
How is Miss Charlotte?
Miss Charlotte Miss Charlotte is antibiotic resistant.
No. Oh man.
We spent much of the past 2 months in and out of the hospital. And she's fine. She'll be fine. Like that's
Right.
like long. But I'm like, kiddo, like cut your mama some slack. Like I'm really tired, child.
Yeah.
But you know, she's somehow still the happiest kid in the world, like despite all of it. Like, yeah, she's home. My dad flew in this time. My parents have been kind of switching off.
Good.
So, you know, she's at home with my dad. He's sending messages going, we're free. We're free. I'm like, I'm so sorry I didn't come home. I'm sorry. Like, this is kind of my vacation being here right now.
Right. Right.
Gosh. But how was work going?
It's great. I'm so happy. It's like a world of a difference. Obviously it took some time to adjust, and obviously too at points was like, you know, I was definitely feeling really guilty at the beginning of the school year when like a lot of my friends are reaching out like, you're so lucky you left, and like, you know, there like a lot of people struggling this year, you know, back in schools and everything, but I had to do what was best for me. And like, I'm fortunate enough to find that transition out of the classroom that like made so much sense for me, you know, because there are so many of my teacher friends who are like, you know, I'm thinking about leaving, but I don't really know what I would do, because a lot of them still want to be educators in different capacities, but they're not really sure like what exactly to do.
Well, it's
So
like, what does
I
that
just
look like? You know,
right. So I'm just very fortunate to have found an organization and a position that is like everything I wanted. Plus, like the work-life balance is just, I
are you
have a
traveling at all
life.
right now?
So we're finally, our office is just reopened. So our travel just just got approved to start traveling again. So we are doing, before I go out on maternity, I have at least 2 trips. So we're going to do a team trip. So there's 5 people on my team. So we have like a trip for us to Atlanta to do like a team building trip. And then one of our next projects that we're working on is going to be trying to get more teachers from the state of Mississippi into our networks. So we're trying to do like a leadership institute down there with educators and like community activists and like a whole bunch of different stakeholders in the social justice world down there. And so we are going down there the first week of May to like basically start making those like connections and introductions.
So,
So those are the two on the list so far. And then like when I get back, we have the NCT conference, like the National Conference for Teachers of English. And then also NCSS is in Philadelphia next year. So I don't have to travel, which is great. My whole team will just come to me, but we have like the two big conferences like right away when I get back. The NCT is in California. So that will be fun.
that's so cool. I'm so glad that worked out. And
Yeah.
that you found something that's fulfilling, because it's
Yes.
hard. It's hard to make a transition. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I know it. We have to.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hold on, she's not. Sorry. Sarah, just turn your mic on. Sarah's sending me messages separately. And I'm just
Well, it's not about this. So
I know. That my response is they can draft one
okay,
and we can review it.
sure.
Or I can do it in a month when I have time.
Yeah.
You know, it's important because we need to acknowledge, our history and the world around us and what's happening today. We do that through education and commemoration, by honoring the memory of those, who were impacted by, these genocides, but by also elevating the voices, of the survivors and the communities, by presenting, sort of a range of those histories, something like that.
Well, good thing that was recorded.
That's a good thing. Sorry, someone asked for a statement about why Holocaust Genocide Awareness Month is important. And I'm like, right one. You can do it. I believe in you. Maybe that's an exercise for everyone. It's why do these things matter? And just having people have to articulate why we do what we do.
Sarah, how's mom life treating you?
I love her to pieces. I hate germs. I can't take anything. Everyone keeps saying, that she will have the best immune system when she's older. And I'm like, well, that doesn't help me right now.
She's going to daycare?
Yes, her and Charlotte go to daycare
Yeah.
together.
Oh, so cute.
Yeah.
Oh, best friends.
And they also get sick together. So
Yeah,
like
sick
let's
together,
just,
Yeah.
they all share everything.
I walked into daycare the other day and Laurel was drinking out of Charlotte's cup. And I was like, yeah, whatever.
It's fine.
My husband keeps saying the one thing he's not looking forward to are like messy hands. He's like, he's not weird about germs and things, but he's like, something about little kids and what they get their hands into, and they're gonna like rub it all over our face and our sleeves and our whatever. He's like, I'm gonna have wipes on me all the time. Okay.
He says that now.
Yes.
And then you eventually reach a
Right.
point where you're like, you know what?
Who
Just
cares?
accept
Yeah.
your hair though. She's gonna be obsessed with your
Yeah.
hair and putting
It's gonna be
everything
up
in
all the
your
time.
hair. Yeah, but just have a unicorn horn at the top of your head where you can't reach it.
No
because-
earrings, no nothing.
No, nothing. Mine's favorite thing is to take my necklace and look like she's admiring it and then try to go. And I'm like, no, we don't eat mommy's jewelry. And she's old enough that she understands my saying no, but she thinks no is a funny word right now. We hit the terrible twos early in my house where you say no and she goes, no. And then she runs off like flying. And yeah, we'll have lots of girl stuff for you.
Yeah.
So much stuff that they've never
All the
worn,
girl things.
that they just,
Right.
that people gift you and you're
Grew
like,
out of, yeah.
Are you doing any of the things in advance or are you waiting?
Any of what things?
Like, are you setting things up in advance at home or?
Yeah. Our crib actually won't get here until after she's born anyway, because the back order on them is ridiculous.
Yep.
But we have some of the furniture pieces in there. Like the nursery will be pretty set up. The only thing we're really adamant about is like not sharing a name.
No, I agree.
Yeah. And like, I'm not having a shower or anything like that, but like if relatives or friends or whatever are asking for a registry, we just, when we release the video at 20 weeks, then we were like made our registry live in case people started asking. So like we're receiving, but like we'll have a baby naming for her afterwards.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
It's like weird because my husband's not Jewish. So like my mother-in-law is like, let me give everything.
I
give everything.
know. Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Just
So
blame
it's
it on
like,
COVID.
that balance.
Yeah, I know exactly
Right?
that one.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's why Sarah
Yep.
made my registry for me.
I did.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I can't bring myself to do this, but like people
Yeah.
wanted to send
Mhm.
things and we couldn't get all the things for my friends. Like I still haven't been back to Toronto since before the pandemic. So like we have all these things there for my daughter. And I'm like, she's 20 months. Like
Do you have any plans to go visit?
the plan is to go in June.
Oh, good. Good.
I have vacation days I have to use. And I'm like,
Good.
let's try to pack the car with a toddler and 2 dogs and drive 10 hours. So like we'll see how it goes. But we have to
Mhm.
get there. Like
Yeah.
no one's met her. And it's just kind of,
Mhm.
it's kind of sad. Do you have a bassinet or do you need one?
We are getting a Moses basket. Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say otherwise if
Mhm.
you wanted one, I've learned never to buy one again. I was going to say if you need one, I have
Right.
a
Just
lovely one.
borrow.
You're
Yeah.
welcome to borrow.
It's in my
Oh,
garage.
thank you. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely helpful. My sister-in-law,
Yeah.
both my sister-in-laws, one has a 2.5-year-old and 7-month-old twins, and then the other one just had a baby in December, so she's 3 months old. So between the two of them too,
yeah.
they've just been like, well, especially my sister-in-law, like my husband's sister with the 3 kids, she's like, I'm done. Like she
Make
basically
it
was like, walk
all-
through my house and just say like, what do you want?
That's
And she's
awesome.
like, especially like the twins will be almost a year by the time our baby's born. So she's like, they'll be hopefully out of a lot of these things by then. And as they grow out of them, like take it all.
Well,
Like,
I'm just
okay.
so happy for the two of you. I'm just so happy.
Thank you.
I was so happy when I knew, like Sarah had told me, but I didn't say anything.
Sorry, Jackie.
That's
I kept
okay.
quiet. I don't share other people's news. It's their news to share, not mine. I
Yeah.
found out the other day that my friend sent a note going, surprise, I had a baby this morning. I'm like, I know. She has 7. So it's like after a certain point, it just loses its, impact. But I was like, I knew, but I didn't say a word because you didn't say a word. So just, respect. And we'll turn it back over to Lauren. And
You're
your
muted,
mic
Laura.
is off.
How did that happen? All right. So welcome back, everybody. Thank you all for the conversation. I didn't realize everybody was high school, so this will be a fun combo. But so if you just want to have a representative or two, just share out really quickly. We have about 10 minutes just to talk about what you talked about in your groups. Or your group, singular.
Allison.
I'll be the brave soul. I don't think we did what we were supposed to do at all in our group. Hi, Kathy Hackler. You just came on my screen. I got to say hi to you. Sorry, one of my colleagues is here. We actually used our time to discuss really what we do with banned books in our classroom, like how
That's
we
awesome.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We were bad students, but I think teachers are the worst students, right? We used our time to actually talk about whether or not when we are doing a banned book in our classroom, if we introduce it as such, or if we wait to the end, or if we just introduce it as a regular book, and how that impacts maybe the way students and parents react to it. And then we all sort of talked about different lessons that we have done that included banned books. So we definitely went off onto a different track of conversation, but I think we all took a little bit of something away from it. So
no, I was gonna say, I love that. That's totally fine. So would you all mind sharing what sources you do use?
So I'm actually not a classroom teacher, and so I was a history teacher for 22 years, and I had the ID 1800 class, and I did my master's, my second master's, in Holocaust and genocide. But I work with other teachers who are doing this because I'm now a district equity coach. So when they're bringing on the big gun conversations, they bring me in, just in case. And so I work with one teacher who has her students read banned books on purpose. Like it's a whole unit that she does, and they have a whole conversation. Like it's like a lot of her courses around banned material. But the guy I talked about that makes me the most happy is a sixth grade teacher who has his students choose YA novels that are recently banned. He likes to do the more contemporary stuff. Sorry, it's been a long day. And he does absolutely tell them from the get-go, like, you're picking banned books or reading banned books because they're middle school kids, and it gets them super excited to be doing something illicit. And then he has them, because it's kind of like a mix of an English, history, humanities class, determine whether or not they think the book should be banned. And they have to do based on their reading and based on why books were banned and things like that. And then I have another colleague who teaches about it through the societal and historical lenses of looking at books in periods when they got banned and what that reflected about society at the time. So
I want to go to that class. That's so cool.
so the materials differ on the classes in the schools, but there's a lot of banned books happening here in Monmouth County. So
That's awesome.
and
Did
and
anyone,
Tackler's here, and she's the elementary. I get to work with her. She's one of our favorite librarians. My librarians are my favorite people to work with in my district, and I say it all the time. And I just want to give her props that are tangential to this, because she, along with the other librarians in the district, used some PD time recently to write new policy on what we're going to do if any of our books get challenged, any of our materials actually get challenged in our district. And I love the nature of that work. So I just want to, and I know there's other librarians here too, so
Awesome.
I just want to give them all credit right now.
thank you for doing that work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks, Allison. Yep. Yeah, we realized at the beginning of the year we got a little worried. Did we have a policy? And we went and looked, and yeah, we had one, but it was like 30 years old and didn't include everything that needed to be in a policy. So we're hoping to take it to the board June, so that they can do something with it over the summer, hopefully.
That's really cool.
I will say, because I was the only elementary person, I have all 4 of those books in my library that you had on your list.
That's awesome.
So, anyway.
That's
And
really
so
cool.
you should. That's and
Right.
Lisa, you just shared something in the chat. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Absolutely. I'm a member of, as a librarian, thank you. I'm a member of NJSOL, New Jersey Association of School Librarians, and they put together this wonderful resource that you should have in your school, have at the ready, of all of the laws in New Jersey that say why we're using these books.
Yep.
And this is honestly, if you have nothing else printed and ready to go, have this one.
Yeah, we use their resource in ours, and it's listed as in our policy.
I mean, because this puts together, it has the Amistad Commission bill, the genocide bill, LGBTQ law, like anything that there's a law about that we're including all these controversial books, it's here. So if someone questions why are you using it, you can say because of this law.
Right. Like I'm teaching the curriculum.
Well, not only the curriculum, law.
Yeah.
This is the New Jersey law. The New Jersey law, forget the curriculum, New Jersey law says I should.
I'm from Pennsylvania, and I'll look to see if we have one from Pennsylvania too. It's a really useful resource. And the main law for, at least for Mouse in the Holocaust education, is the Never Again Act, which was signed by President Trump, believe it or not, and passed almost unanimously by the Congress. Not that I support President Trump.
No, but we take laws like that where we can get them.
Yep. Yeah.
And so I think, on that, Michael, you had brought up, in the chat, speaking specifically about Mouse, how is your district, responded to it or other books, being in PA?
I teach college. I teach at Penn State, so I'm not thankfully subject to district discussion. But I live down the street from a state representative who believes that critical race theory is a threat, and or at least supports a bill that says that. And there's plenty of other challenges to curricula besides the banning or not banning. What I said to my group, and I was primarily interested in mouse because I co-taught a course with it, and I actually didn't like using mouse as much as I liked using other things, but the Holocaust in general and mouse in particular is a contested narrative, right? It's a disrupted and contested narrative. So however you define story, history, true or not true, mouse itself is both banned and contested. When Spiegelman published it, it was because they wanted it to be published before he was finished, and it was put into the fiction section because it looked like a comic, but it wasn't. It was a graphic memoir, and he insisted that he should have, his right to have his family story in the truth section of the bookstore. And he was successful to some extent, and then he won the Pulitzer Prize, and then everybody read it, and then he finished it. When he talked about the recent controversy, he basically said students should be empowered to do what they want. They should choose their own books. They will choose their own books. And it's, the curriculum debates or wars, or whatever you want to call them, are important. But in the end, it's, the reader's choice of what they want to learn from. And it will always be. And he told a story. I was on a Zoom with him where he was talking to the Tennessee county and other people, temples and stuff like that down there. And he said that when he was a kid, he used to play in the street. He tried to play stickball with his friends, and he was small and he was weak, and he wasn't very good at playing ball with his friends, and they taunted him and mistreated him. And so when he told this to his dad, who was a Holocaust survivor, the Vladek, the one that he wrote about in Mouse, turned from being a kind of cranky, be a big guy, kind of dad who didn't really want to be helpful to his kid because the world was a terrible place. The dad suddenly got nice to him. So Spiegelman learned about bullying, and that was the first time he had insight into his own father. And so he wrote this book to really learn about his father. It became a father-son story for Spiegelman. And this father-son story became one of the main representatives of the Holocaust that, my co-teacher decided as a historian he should put in our Penn State course. And so he did, and we did. But what I've found, and I'm the son of Holocaust survivors as well, or a grandson and son of a Holocaust, grandson of one and of two, and son of one Holocaust survivor, is that to teach the Holocaust is to start something that you can't finish. It's a really difficult history, and it's a difficult subject. And what's banned in the books is primarily violence. Violence is a very difficult topic to teach, and you don't want to feel bad, but of course you must feel bad because the world was a bad place. It was unjust, and the reflections of that injustice are everywhere in literature. So when you try to tell a story, when Spiegelman tries to tell a story, when you as a teacher or me as a teacher tries to tell a story, inevitably it's disrupted. Inevitably something happens. Inevitably, there's a Hitler, there's a persecution, there's a bump in the road, or many bumps in the road. So when you say, should this book be banned or not banned, the issue is, what are we studying? Are we studying the true history of our world, or are we studying some fictionalized, idealized representation? And Anne Frank is great. Anne Frank was a wonderful representation, and still is a wonderful representation of the Holocaust, but that's not what happened. She was a hidden child who didn't see the Holocaust until it was too late, and other people saw more of of the reality of death and destruction that was the Holocaust. And the same for, Richard Wright or anybody else who writes about, violence and pain and things that are true in history. So, you want your students and your students' parents to ease into the real difficulties of the past and of history, but you don't want to pretend that it's something that it's not.
Thank you all so much for engaging in this conversation today and thinking about like why we can and should and how we can use these materials and to really like to do exactly what you all said, right? To be critical, to grow out of being uncomfortable. Nothing's going to change if we're not critical and if we're not uncomfortable, right? I am more than happy to stay on if people have questions, but thank you all so much. And if you need to, here's my contact information again. And I want to be respectful of everybody's time. And I just want to say thank you so much to Adara and Kean and, to Jackie for letting me do this. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. Thank you. And, something that you made me think about that I hope other people can take away is, there's no simple answers to any of this. It's not cut and dry. I think about banned books and my question is something banned? Is something discouraged? Like, do we know what banned means? And I have a feeling a lot of people don't. I'm like, because, people here have said it, kids are going to read things anyways. Adults are going to read things anyways. So are we really banning it or are we just enticing people in a sense? Because I would put money that book sales went up.
Mouse did. Mouse
Yeah.
was,
I
you
can
can
tell
get a
you that
copy on
my,
Amazon.
yeah, my copies of Mouse suddenly started, going out again very quickly after that. But if you've looked at Sherman Alexi's book, I'm gonna say the title wrong. I always do. The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian or something to that effect. It was banned in I forget what school district. So, and I love this. The publisher and Sherman Alexie actually sent free copies through the local bookstores to just hand out.
That's awesome.
So, there were other books that had similar stories. So what they don't realize is they're actually helping a lot of these authors. And I mean, at least for me, I was a little subversive this year when with the very last gasp of my budget money, I combed through all of the news articles and found all the banned books, and any of the banned books that I could afford to get that I didn't already have in my library. That's what I used the last bit of my money on.
Can I just jump in really quickly? I'm so sorry to take up people's time, but I really, Lauren, when you were sharing your slides earlier with us, I really wanted to ask this question to you and to other people and get your feedback. I don't oftentimes get a chance to talk about this with other teachers, specifically this topic. So I'm just curious, do you think I could ask this really quick? You said you went to the memorial where it had the book burning memorial. So my curiosity that I have is, back then that was such a outwardly obvious act, burning books like that. It's such a public act. Now in retrospect, you see something like that happening and it's like, well, of course that was like a horrible thing that they did. My thought, because I'm such a cynical person, I hate to go there, is that these book banning efforts are like a cleaned up way of doing something so like that. Like, oh, we'll just go through the Board of Ed and we'll vote and we'll say that the kids can't handle the nudity and the violence and the cursing. And that kind of like almost in a way like shifts the underlying potential reasons why we want to ban some of these books, particularly like things like having to do with the Holocaust. Obviously, there's so many reasons why certain books get hot. I'm just curious if other people feel like, am I the only one who is this cynical? Like,
no, that's exactly why I put it on this slide, like that's what I was thinking of, that like Mouse, for example, it is both banned and contested, right? Like there are certain school districts who are like, yeah, we're going to keep it, but it can only be in high school. But then there are some districts that are like, absolutely not. And I think a lot of the bigotry and racism and sexism, ageism, classism is covert. It's implicit, it's covert. Like the whole thing with critical race theory, like if you really get down to it, like why are people afraid of critical race theory? And thinking, so I don't think you're cynical at all. I think does it really matter if a book is burned or if a book is
Well,
banned from a library? You're still silencing the author.
and just to jump in also, I'm sorry, but it's not as polite as you would like to think. If you look at, there was a school, I can post the link if you want, but there was a school library journal article about what happened. I want to say North Hunterdon County public, like high school, or North Hunterdon, something like that, high school. The librarian is Martha Hickson. They tried pulling books, and while at the board meeting, while the parents were talking about what books they wanted pulled, they actually asked that criminal charges be filed against Martha Hickson, the school librarian.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it really happens. She's on, like, she's one of my mentors, to be honest. She's a wonderful, wonderful librarian, but they were out for blood. They didn't just want the books banned. They wanted to, they wanted her arrested. So it really shook up a lot of librarians, because if it could happen to her, and she's really well liked, this could happen to any of us. Not only that, but the board was not standing by her. The board, while the board voted to keep the books, no one really stood up and said, hey, you can't treat her like this. She's our employee and she has our backing. They just sort of kept quiet while people were saying this stuff. So, it's not as polite as we'd like to think. It's not, you're reading the sanitized versions when you're reading the news articles or seeing what's happening in all the different, places in all the different districts. But if you're actually at the meetings, people are getting a little nutty.
Oh, I completely agree with you on that. I do, because I hear comments. I watch our Board of Ed meetings too in our district, and usually they're the ones that are the most vocal and outrageous. But my concern is because we are all educators in some way, shape, or form, or in the academic world, we are enthralled in it. And then when outsiders ask us, what are your thoughts on all these book bannings or critical race theory? A lot of that times the conversation then goes to, well, look at it from the other perspective. And I hate doing that, but it's like other people who don't engage in it as often as we do, I feel, don't see it like with the alarm bells. And so therefore you have to go to their side for a minute and just be like, yeah, but before I go off on the deep end and tell you why this is like just as scary as book burnings, you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm rambling right now. I totally see what you're saying. Yes, there are some scary people, kooky people out there, but I just worry that for people who don't pay attention as much, and they do tune into the news once or twice, and they're just getting accustomed to hearing these stories, they're like, yeah, well, what is so wrong with debating if this is appropriate for certain kids? So anyway, I rambled, sorry. But Lisa, I totally understand what you're saying.
Oh. Just thank you all.
I just want to also say that Holocaust education is not recommended at all for kids under 6th grade, but there are materials available for early Holocaust education. My rabbi, I'm a temple president, my rabbi finally said, yeah, you can come and do Holocaust education for the older kids in the Hebrew school at our temple. And what I showed them was something that was really made for, elementary ed. It was a video from University of Southern California called The Tattooed Torah. It's a story about a boy and his Torah. And so even state law doesn't recommend Holocaust education for early ed, because so really the arguments about who's the authority, is the teacher the authority, is the student free to choose, and things like that. And there's no two sides to the Holocaust, but there's definitely important issues around who's making decisions on education and curriculum and stuff like that. I also should say that the Holocaust is a very important thing to teach, but it should never be used as a metaphor. One of the principles of the United States Holocaust Museum is don't use Holocaust as a metaphor. So when books were burned in 1933 and thereafter by the Nazis, and I had an eyewitness to this talk to my class not too long ago. It was, they make a pile of books and they light on fire, but it was in the context of having Jewish people excluded entirely, evicted from their houses, excluded from schools, subject to all released from their jobs, fired from being teachers, excluded systematically in 1935 from government jobs, civil service, anything. So the degree of persecution was a whole different level than saying we don't like this, or we're taking one side and somebody's taking the other. There was no other side in the Holocaust, and there's no other side to whether Holocaust is important. It is important, and it can be represented in many good ways. And book bans are a problem, but other things, injustice, racial injustice, Holocaust, racism, sexism, as was mentioned, are really bigger problems than what book is on a list and what book is not.
Thank you all. No, thank you all so much. I really appreciate our thoughtful conversation this afternoon. So thank you.
Thanks, and well said, Michael. Very well said.
Thank you again,
you.
Lauren.
Everybody.
Thank you for everyone for being here. I will be sending out professional development certificates for the educators tomorrow. And we'll be sharing information about some upcoming events that may be of interest to you. And we hope to see you soon. Have a good night and have a lovely, lovely weekend. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Adara, I hope Charlotte feels better soon.
Me too.
I'll keep my fingers crossed for you.
Thank you.
I know I'm far away, but if you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to ask.
It has been, hold on one second, I'll tell you. I'm trying to stop this recording.